Welcome to A2A Conversations, an ongoing discussion about turning adversity into advocacy. Join us as we explore the power of purpose, service, and empathy, and the resilience we build when helping ourselves by helping others. Now here's our host, A2A founder, Jeff Bell.
Welcome. You are in for a treat today, as my guest is a truly remarkable woman, as engaging and fun as she is inspiring. Karen Duffy, known simply as Duff to millions of Americans, is a highly successful author, actress, producer, and former MTV VJ. She's also someone living with chronic pain from sarcoidosis of the central nervous system. What follows is our recent conversation about Duff's powerful advocacy and our shared interest in ancient philosophy. Duff, it's great to see you.
Right back at you, Jeff. We've known each other a long time.
We have, and the last time we spoke was, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. You were kind enough to do an A2A Spotlight interview with us. And since that time, you've published an amazing new book called Wise Up. And I have come to discover that we have a shared deep interest in Stoicism with a capital S.
Stoicism has become a scaffolding. And I have been reading the Stoics for 30 years. And I truly believe I am absolutely a better person for it.
Well, because we share this passion, and because Stoicism has been such a part of our lives, I think it'll be kind of a cool backdrop for our conversation. So I want to start with that. And because you've done this amazing job in your new book of kind of laying out the basics of what Stoicism is and is not, I'm going to ask you to start there. What should we know about Stoicism?
Well, Jeff, I think it's important to understand that we're familiar with the lowercase s word stoic, which means stiff upper lip. And the capital S stoic comes from the Greek word stoa, meaning porch. And there was a group of ancient philosophers in Greece who met on a porch, and they believed that their way of thinking was very practical and open to everyone. So rather than hiding in an academy or away from the public, it was a public forum, a public discourse. And what I love about Stoicism is it is a great philosophy. Philosophy means love of wisdom. And it is a school of philosophy that was written 20 centuries ago, yet feels as if the ink is still wet. It feels so modern.
Yeah, we're talking about Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Seneca and some of these great Stoic thinkers. Talk a little bit about the dichotomy of control, because that's such a key part of what we're going to be discussing today.
Absolutely. So Epictetus, my main man, was an amazing Stoic thinker. And truly, the Stoic philosophy is based on the dichotomy of control, meaning we can't control what happens. We can only control how we respond. And when you think about it, that's all it is. There's a spiritual equation that says life is 10% what happens and 90% how we respond. And again, I think this is a miraculous thought and will absolutely make you aware of how you respond. Epictetus also said, if you make beautiful choices, you will make a beautiful life.
Yeah, and that is beautiful wisdom right there. Just for fun, I'm going to throw a bunch of Stoic quotes at you, and we're going to use those as sort of touchstones for walking through your journey, okay? We'll see how this goes. So first, the blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything thrown into it. That's Marcus Aurelius. You, my friend, have had a lot thrown into your fire over the years. Let's start at the beginning, at least the public beginning, which is your days as an MTV VJ. You were a model, you were an actress. Were those days as glamorous and rewarding as we might imagine they would be?
Well, it's interesting, Jeff. I believe that all skills are transferable. And I started out my career as a young woman working as a recreational therapist in a nursing home in my neighborhood in the West Village of New York City.
This is
And
before the big days with MTV and whatnot.
Absolutely. It was before. I had been volunteering at this nursing home since I was 12 years old.
Mm.
And when I graduated college, I think I was 22, I moved back to New York and was hired at the same nursing home where I had been volunteering. And I realized that working with the population that had a diminished attention span, that I knew how to move my body. I knew how to modulate my elocution to make people pay attention to me. And also, I'm visible. I'm very high contrast. I've got black hair, white skin, red lips. So you can see me. So I realized that, wow, MTV is being called out as destroying people's attention spans. Well, I know exactly how to deal with attention span. So I sent in a unsolicited audition tape to MTV. I think I sent it in on a Friday. By Tuesday, I had my first screen test. And by Friday, I was a VJ. And
Wow.
so I didn't have time to really get nervous. I just figured I'm going to allow these nerves and this jumpy Jimmy leg feeling. I'm going to allow that to fuel me. And I'm going to feel gratitude before anxiety. I'm going to be grateful that I have this anxiety. I was going to make it my friend. And so the way I practiced was I would go to the Museum of Broadcasting and watch old Frank Sinatra variety shows. And I'd say, how does he do it? And then I just figured I would just try and copy small little ways. He was always dressed up. When I was on MTV, it was the height of the grunge era, where everyone was in flannel and smelled like patchouli. And I was always in high heels because I felt like I was a guest in your living room. So all of the skills that I had working in a nursing home, where I felt confident that I was a great recreational therapist, I felt gratitude that I was being of service. And I realized that if this did not work out, I could always go back to my career as a recreational therapist. I stayed as a volunteer all the way on until they closed the nursing home.
So it sounds like you were pretty well grounded even for this overnight success.
You know, it's interesting. It truly felt like it was overnight because although I'd been in acting school, I'd been in acting, I had been taking classes, I did improv, but I also felt like that was going to help me in life. It was going to help me as a therapist. I realize now that it really helped me as a VJ, and it helped me feel, again, confidence is so important because it is, Marcus Aurelius tells us to be a friend to ourselves. And it was interesting that, and then getting a job as a model, I felt like I snuck into a party and I was just waiting to be thrown out. I felt like a Leroy Neiman in a gallery of Van Goghs. But again, I kept my sense of humor and I had a ball with it. So it was a lot of fun and I'm grateful for it. And I'm still bearing the fruits of all the friendships that I made during that time.
And of course, along the way, you developed some health challenges that proved to be a big part of your life moving forward. At what point were you diagnosed with anything in particular?
It's interesting, Jeff, because I was symptomatic for many years, probably 15 years, with these unexplained headaches and the fact that I was just dealing with a lot of pain, but didn't understand why. And I was diagnosed probably when I was about 34 with sarcoidosis of the central nervous system. So I have a lesion in my brainstem and lower medulla. And so your skull is a contained environment. So as this lesion grew, it crushed all the nerves. So I live in constant chronic pain. And I figured I didn't want chronic pain to make me mean. I wanted to find a way that happiness and chronic pain could coexist. And what's interesting, Jeff, when you deal with an illness, we often use these warlike metaphors like we're going to fight this and we're going to blast it. And imagine that, we're just going to beat this and you're a warrior. And I realized I'm a lover, not a fighter. I didn't want all these warlike metaphors. And so again, I realized I had to accept that this was going to be a part of my life. And if I hated the pain that I am in, if I hated sarcoidosis, I would hate a big part of my life. And I love my life and I'm grateful for my life. And I will tell you that it was faith and having the wisdom of the great Stoics that helped me navigate a way to mourn for my old life and figure out a whole new life.
I think you must have got a hold of my notes, because the next quote I was going to throw at you is this. Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself. And you've just shared a little bit about what pain has revealed to you about yourself. That was Epictetus, by the way.
Yes, Epictetus, he is my main man. And Epictetus means acquired. And Epictetus is probably one of the most radiant minds in the school of Stoic philosophy. And he was enslaved. 80% of the population of the golden age of Athens, of the Greco-Roman Empire, was enslaved. And so his name means acquired. He was owned, he was enslaved by a secretary to Emperor Nero, who was a sadistic person. And he was twisting Epictetus's leg. And he said, if you keep doing that, you're going to break it. And you can tell Epictetus from all the other Stoics, because he is always shown with his crutch. And I imagine that he lived a very long life with chronic pain, yet he was able to truly create the canon of the greatest, I think, quotes and discourses in Stoic philosophy.
Let's talk a little bit about the advocacy that you stepped into through your adversity. Another quote here from Marcus Aurelius: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So you have all this chronic pain that you're dealing with. It gets in the way of your acting career and your modeling career and other things that you thought life had planned for you. It's clearly an impediment to some of the action in your life. And yet you use that to springboard into advocacy. At what point did that happen, and why did you choose to pursue that path?
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in a family where service was expected. Shirley Chisholm said, service is the rent we pay to live on earth. And so my family, we had families of refugees and foster children, and it was a part of my life. And when I was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, I realized that because I had this kind of friendly audience as this on MTV, and that there's about 80 million Americans who live in some sort of chronic pain. And it's interesting, the word pain comes from the Latin puona, meaning punishment or penalty. And living with pain can feel like you are being punished for a crime you didn't commit. And so I work very closely with many organizations that work with sarcoidosis and the U.S. Pain Foundation, International Pain Foundation. But one of my favorite paths to advocacy was, because I was on chemotherapy for so long, I couldn't have children for really the main decade where women try to have kids. I could not do that. But I felt, there are many paths to parenting, and until I can have a child, I can perhaps be useful in another child's life. So I'm a part of the Big Sister program, and I have been since I was 21.
Well, that sort of leads to my next quote, which is a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, which is another shared passion of ours, Emerson writings. It is one of the most beautiful compensations of this life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. We sort of paraphrase that with A2A, that we help ourselves by helping others. That's our tagline. I know from previous conversations with you that has very much played out in your life, that this is part of your own resilience, is this ability to help other people. Speak to that a little bit, if you would.
I believe it is a mistake to do nothing just because you can only do a little. And I have limits, and I am able to manage my time and energy to be present. And it is the greatest gift and the greatest honor. I feel like all of us, we have a choice to be useful or useless. And to be useful to others, to a belief that is important to you, every day we can take small steps. One of my favorite quotes from Mother Teresa said, "We all can't do great things, but we can all do small things with great love." And then back to Emerson, he said, "Nothing great in life has ever been accomplished without enthusiasm." And so
Amen.
I love that. And I just adore Ralph Waldo Emerson, because he was a transcendentalist and very influenced by the Stoics.
Let me talk a little bit about your writing, because you've published some amazing books, including this latest one, Wise Up. You use a lot of humor in your writing, and I love that because it makes you so accessible, and it makes it possible for you to share some great wisdom without us even realizing that you're sharing that wisdom with us. And another quote, Epictetus, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." Ain't that true?
Absolutely. I love this. You know, it's been interesting, Jeff, because many of the most prominent minds in philosophy have reached out and embraced this book, which was absolutely an unexpected joy. I didn't expect, I wrote this because Stoicism has somewhat been kind of co-opted into life hacks by tech bros. It's almost broicism. And so I wrote the book originally as a series of essays, but then I realized, there is a tradition with the Stoics, specifically Seneca's Letters to a Young Stoic. I thought, if I addressed each chapter as a letter to a younger person who I love, that would stand in for the reader, I could be more intimate.
Mhm.
I really wanted the reader to feel love. And I wanted the reader to feel that this is accessible, this is practical. And I wanted to feel like I had my arm around you and we were hanging out at a bar having a beer. I wanted it to feel very informal. And the beauty is, Donald Robertson, Massimo Pugliacci, Kai Whiting, Simon Drew, Sharon LaBelle, all these amazing philosophers have reached out and they're like, "Duff, how do you find all the funny stuff in philosophy?" And the truth is, it was what I was looking for. They were human beings. They had humor. And I wanted to include that again, to open up a new audience.
Well, you've done a masterful job of this. These letters are to your son. How has he responded?
You know, it was interesting because, Jeff, in France, if a parent posts any image or mention of their child on social media, that child can then sue their parent for invasion of privacy. So in case I had a litigious kid, I made sure, I was like, "Jack, how would you feel? And if I wrote these letters to you?" And he said, "I have one request, that you use my real name. Don't call me Lefty. Don't call me Slim. Call me by my name, because I am proud of you." And then at the end of the book, he then writes a letter back to me. And in our family, we have a rule. We have no technology at the table, just philosophy books and the sports pages. So if you don't feel like talking at breakfast, fine, but there's something for you to pick up and feed your mind. And it has been such a gift to hear my son say to me, "Well, Mom, as Aristotle said, worry is misuse of the imagination," or to hear him parrot a philosophical quote right back to me. I adore it.
Were you beaming with pride at that point?
A Greek fire ignited in my heart. And one of the things we also do, which I found to be very successful, is we pick a motto and we don't make a big deal. We don't write it down or burn it or anything. We're just like, hey, what do you think about this? I've come across this. And right now it is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And the motto we carry in our heart is, write it on your heart that every day is the best day of the year. He who is rich who seizes the day. And he came across it and shared it with us. And that is our motto for the next, until we choose the next one.
That's fabulous. Let me wrap things up by throwing one more quote at you and then asking you to pull everything together here, because as you know, A2A is about turning adversity into advocacy, and it's about choices. It's, there are things we can control and there are things we cannot control, as you and I have learned from the Stoics and the dichotomy of control concept. So Epictetus said that the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Translate that for us all these centuries later in terms of what it means for somebody dealing with adversity.
Again, with adversity, we have to understand that we will all face some sort of obstacles. With me right now, like there are many, but right now it's chronic pain. And I understand that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So we will all face obstacles. Aristotle said, it is expected that unexpected things will happen. So the problem is we often don't expect there to be problems. And I think one of the things that A2A does, where I feel like your message is, we are now awake, that you are not alone, and that we can turn your broken heart and turn it into art. Turn your pain into power.
I love that. And what a perfect place to wrap up. Duff, thank you so much for making the time for us. Your time, your wisdom are gifts to our little organization. And I so appreciate your making this time this morning.
I am so inspired by what you are doing, and it is truly an honor. And thank you for including me. And it is truly, truly, it just means the world.
You've been watching A2A Conversations, a presentation of the nonprofit A2A Alliance. Guest views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect those of A2A, its advocates, advisors, or partners. To watch more of our A2A Conversations, please visit us online at a2aalliance.org.